Welcome back to the Monmouth Basketball Hawks Nest podcast. Thanks for listening tonight. We have two nice games to talk about. That we got a sweep of Marist this weekend. We're going to go over both of those games, take a quick look at Quinnipiac for next week, and see what's going on with this team leading forward the next few weeks. One thing to note, Monmouth got its 1,000th win as a men's basketball program. So congratulations to this team and every Monmouth team that has come before them, because for a school that hasn't been around that long, it's an impressive feat, and it gets you thinking about the memories over the years. And I haven't been around that long. I know Tony Graham and some of our listeners have been around for decades with this program. I've been around for 10 years now. So, I have only a limited memory, but some great memories. Marc's on with me now. He's got some memories, and, we're going to talk about those in the beginning, and then we'll go over the game. But what's going on, Marc? Congratulations on your Bills, by the way.
Yeah, so in last weekend, cheering against an upstate New York team with Monmouth and Marist, and then 100% cheering for the other upstate New York team, my Buffalo Bills. 3-0 weekend for me. Life is good. We are going to really rely on Ryan more when we're talking about the Saturday game because, to be honest, Monmouth Nation, I had about half an eye on that game and 1.5 eyes on the Bills game, with it being a playoff game. But you know what? During halftime, the way that the schedule aligned, I was able to watch a lot of the Monmouth game actually pretty intently. And luckily for me, it wasn't a nail biter. Monmouth took care of business. And I just had to worry about the NFL officials and what is a fumble, what's not a fumble. My wife thinking I'm insane. You just can't make it up, Ryan. And like I always say, it's never easy. I feel like that with Monmouth. I feel like that with Buffalo. I feel like that with all my teams. It's never easy, but hey, 3-0 weekend, I'll take it. And this weekend, Buffalo plays at 8:15. Monmouth plays early, so I'll be able to fulfill all my fanatical obligations.
I'll tell you what, nothing's crazy about yelling about that fumble call, because that was high level garbage on the NFL refs for that game. That was as clear of a missed call as I've ever seen in an NFL game. And as soon as I saw it, I texted you right away. I said, "What's your heart rate and your blood pressure at right now?" Because I'm a little concerned if I was at your house right now, because that was truly just such bad officiating.
And like I've done so many times during a Monmouth game, I'll be screaming and yelling. And if my wife happens to walk by or she's in the room, she always tends to say to me, "You're the only one here." But for me, when you're a fanatic, you get so engulfed. And as people can attest who sat near me or within earshot of me, or even maybe on the other side of the court or on King Rice's bench, when I am not happy about officiating, I will let it be known, and my voice carries.
I'll tell you what, one area where I'm very fortunate, and I'm fortunate for many reasons this way, but my fiance Nicole has become almost as big of a Monmouth fan as I have. And there's times where I'm more calm and a ref blows a call or somebody throws the ball into the stands on a crazy turnover, and she's screaming at the TV before I do. So it's nice having that to kind of bounce off a little bit. And she knows all the players and all the teams, and she's become a pretty big Monmouth and Mac fan too. So it's nice to kind of have that to buffer off of a little bit sometimes, because sometimes she gets more upset than I do. Highlighting the 1,000th win, King Rice talked about it a lot in the press conference. He went over all the coaches of the past for starting the program, for getting it to Division I from NAIA. He talked about getting it from the old Boylan Gym to the MAC, and now it's the Ocean First Bank Center, and just how this program has evolved over the last 30, 40 plus years. He credited all those people, all the players that came before him. He was talking about, getting old players to come back. You're invited to practice anytime. We'll get you a fat head in the stands. You're always family. It was really cool to see King Rice kind of reflect on, how lucky he feels to be the coach here at Monmouth. And it was cool watching him kind of reflect on all that. And by the way, before we get into this, I got to ask you, Marc, I see myself on TV. Where's your fat head? Are you in there yet?
I don't think anybody needs that. All right. I think that people, Monmouth fans, hear plenty enough from me. I know that Nicole, as nice and caring as she was, got that for you as a surprise Christmas gift. And the thing that I crack up about every time is that you are smiling so intently right behind
Yeah.
the opposing bench. And I know if we placed your real fat head there, you would not be smiling behind some of those opposing Mac coaches.
Oh, I can't imagine if it was Cluis or Massiello or one of those guys what my face would look like. It'd probably be a profanity coming out of my mouth, but that's neither here nor there. We'll just drove past that. So, I was thinking about my favorite Monmouth moments and players since I've been a fan, going back to the 1,000 wins. What are your top 5, not best, but your favorite Monmouth players that you got a chance to watch live?
So number 1 is Justin Robinson, greatest player I've ever seen at Monmouth. His will, his heart, the fact that he was, under 5'9" and did the things that he could do, and how he brought the program to new heights, and the upsets, and the way that he engulfed that whole roster from 1 through 14. He has to be number 1 for me. Number 2, I'm going to date myself here. I'm going to go with Blake the Hammer Hamilton. He was a dominant player back in the NEC days, an NEC Player of the Year. He brought us to the NCAA tournament in 2004 when I was a student there. Just a dominant swing forward. Great guy, too. Still heavily involved around the program. Number 3 for me, Jalon Hornbeek. Kind of player with the level of talent that he had, gave you chills every time he crossed half court. I was yelling for him to take the ball and shoot. I'm sure King didn't love that, but Jalon, again, what he did coming in and taking Monmouth to that next level, unbelievable. And the way that he saw the game, too. Jalon Hornbeek, to me, had the mind of a future coach. The way that he saw the game and the way that he was constantly coaching the other players, having come in as a fourth-year junior, really, after his redshirt year, and from a big-time school at Oklahoma. For me, the way that I see the game, to see a younger player, college player, see the game like that and point things out was amazing. Number 4, the only man I ever saw lose his teeth on the basketball court, that's Max DeLeo. His energy, what he did, the way that he sold his whole body out, he was amazing. And from once he came from a walk-on as a freshman with athleticism, but not really able to harness any of it, no reliable jump shot, no real handle, to where he came as a junior and a senior. Unbelievable story. Great kid. I know he's got to be on your list. Number 5 for me, again, I'm going to date myself, Big John Bunch, 7'2", 300 plus. What he did in the 06, what they used to call the play-in game against Hampton, captivating really America, as it was, those are standalone games. And what he did to bring that Monmouth team in 06, my senior year of college, to the NCAA tournament. He was just an absolute force. And my bonus is another player who actually spanned the 2 NCAA tournaments and spanned my time at Monmouth as a student, point guard Tyler Azzarelli, who was just a disruptor, similar to Max in a lot of ways, with a little bit of illegal hand checking and things that he got away with, and the fact that he just made everyone around him better, and the kid was just an absolute winner.
All great options there. I'll definitely agree with Justin Robinson as my first one. Everybody knows what he did for this program, put it on the map in so many ways. I actually tweeted at him last night. He tweeted something about NBA players not understanding how they can't give max energy for 30, 35 minutes or something like that. It's about energy on the court. And I tweeted at him from the podcast account, and I said, you got to understand, you're a different breed. Like, there's very few people in the world that can go at hyper speed for 35, 40 minutes in a row and completely exhaust himself and do it again the next day. And he got a chuckle out of it, and, he appreciated it. But, I mean, Justin was unlike anyone I've ever seen, and I still say to this day, if he was 5'11", 6 foot, he'd be starting the NBA somewhere, because his quickness, his ball handling, his shooting, being 5'8" is the only reason that guy is not in the NBA. and he still should be because he tore up the summer league when he was in it, and that included rookies that were first rounders and veterans that had been in the league a couple of years. He tore through that league, scoring 35 in a couple of games for the Heat. And, Justin obviously has to be top of the list. Deion Hammond, it's amazing watching him play right now, the player he's grown into. You always knew he was lethal from the start, but, I mean, what he's doing with the team this year, you see him taking a whole nother step forward and a level of responsibility with this team, being the leader, being the senior spokesperson, being a much better defender than he was the last 3 years, being a rebounder. I mean, he's really doing everything in his power to get this team to a tournament in his last year. Hopefully not last year. Maybe he comes back, but I don't know. But it's great to see Deion doing what he's doing. He's great to watch out there. My third one is our second one in common, Max DeLeo. He was my roommate at Monmouth my senior year. We were the same year. Watching him play and grow from the freshman that I was probably yelling at in the stands because he wasn't getting a lot of minutes, but when he did, he would turn the ball over or commit, fouls that he didn't need to. And he really, his sophomore, junior year, he really started making a name for himself at Monmouth. And senior year, he gets the scholarship, which is well-deserved. He took the hit from Billy Barron in the teeth, shut him down the second game he played him. I mean, Max is one of the toughest kids, and he did more than I think anybody at Monmouth with the amount of talent he had compared to what he actually produced was unlike anything. I mean, was he strong? Was he athletic? Yes. Was he the most talented kid? No. He wasn't even close to the most talented kid. He was probably one of the least talented kids in the team, but he did so much with it. You didn't really know it wasn't there. And he became such a great player for Monmouth. So it was really fun to get to know him my last year there. Number 4, Deion Jones. The guy did a little bit of everything. He rebounded, he hit threes. And when he transferred to us from Towson, it was a blessing because, I mean, that guy is so underrated. And because of Justin, Jelon, and Micah and the super team they created for a couple of years, people forget about Deion Jones and they forget just how good he was in just every aspect of the game. He brought a toughness to the team, and he's a guy you don't see very often in the MAC, the kind of player he is. My 5th guy is Austin Tillman. I know I have all recent guys here, but that's what I know. Austin became another guy freshman year, had a rough freshman year. I remember against Manhattan on Super Bowl Sunday, he had a bunch of turnovers. They picked him apart, and he really struggled out there. And he took it his sophomore, junior, and senior year. He just kept getting better. And he was a bull in a china closet. You couldn't stop the kid by his junior year. And senior year, he ran that team. And I know the record didn't show it, and they didn't have the best year, but I mean, Austin Tillman was as fun as anybody to watch. His reverse layups around the basket, hitting a third-quarter shot that went up on Sports Center. And I mean, the kid was so much fun to watch. When he could have played higher level football for D1, he chose to come to us and play basketball, and we were lucky to have him. My last one was Jesse Steele, my bonus one. And Jesse Steele was the point guard when I first got to Monmouth as a freshman. And watching him play and watching his legend, because I was at Monmouth the year before my freshman year watching them play with a friend that went to games. And they said this kid was picked up in the gym. He went to Army, didn't work out. They were watching him play pickup games, and they took him on. I'm like, wow, that's a great story. And I watched him play. I'm like, how does a D1 team not have this guy? And, Jesse Steele, 3-point shooter, tough nose, small guard, just like Justin, built differently, had different games. But it was a lot of fun to watch him play. And that was kind of my first exposure to a star at Monmouth. So I went with Justin there. Or Jesse. But either way, congrats to the program on 1,000 wins. We love this team. And if you get a chance, go on social media. It's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's everywhere. Check out the Monmouth Hawks and Monmouth basketball accounts. They have a great video that's narrated by Ron Cornegay, and he narrates kind of through the years of the championships and the great moments at Monmouth. And it's a really well done video. So if you haven't looked at that yet, make sure you watch it. It's a must watch. So getting into this game, Monmouth had a great weekend. So I said in the podcast last week, it's a series based on talent. To me, they should have been able to sweep, and they did. I said you got to get at least a split, and don't lose both because your schedule coming up is daunting after Quinnipiac. So they did the job. They got the sweep. In the first game, they won it 80-64 over Marist. Monmouth led early, 10, 11-point lead. Marist got closer here and they got it down to 1. They got it to 38-37 right before the half. And Monmouth goes on a little run, takes a 5-point lead at the halftime. Monmouth pushed the lead up to 51-39, and there was really no looking back after that. Marist never got within 8 again, and it was pretty much a dominating performance from the tip. Besides Marist getting it close right before halftime, this was never really a game. And I will say one thing. I'm really starting to wonder, because we've said it in the past. I'm really starting to wonder if King Rice or somebody on that staff listens to the podcast, because I said last week you should start Miles Drew, the point guard. I said Sam Chapeau's struggling. Maybe he needs some time on the bench. Maybe he needs to come off the bench and find his spark or light a fire under him or something. And Miles Drew is playing well right now, so insert him into the lineup. Well, what do you know? First game, Miles Drew is starting. So I'm not saying they listen to it, but I'm not saying they don't listen to it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Any thoughts on that, Mark?
That was in my notes for later on, too. A tip of the cap to you for possibly changing up the Monmouth rotation.
Listen, it worked. It worked.
Hey, you know what? If two guys are taking the time to bring some notoriety and some support to your program, it's pretty easy to listen to a podcast while you're getting in your workout. So that's all I'll say about that. I listen to a bunch of different podcasts, including re-listening to ours to critique myself and try to get better. And I see no reason why there isn't someone on staff. Maybe it's like the team manager. Maybe they make them listen to us and take notes on some of the dumb things they think we say. But maybe every once in a while we say something that, makes a lot of sense.
I will say, though, more and more guys starting to favor and retweet our stuff. I know McClary retweeted one of my things the other day. Foster and Holmstrom have been liking stuff on there. So with Malik, we've been getting some likes and retweets on there from players. So they're either listening or just looking at my tweets during the game. So they know we're out there. So they appreciate what we're doing.
Yeah,
I don't know if everybody does,
Ryan,
but
I don't think it's ever been a question of the players listening or not. I think if you're a player and all you have is when Jaden does, a little bit on us on his blog or on Twitter, or Steve Edelson in the Asbury Park Press, I think without a doubt, if you're a player, you want to listen, and especially if you're not a Dion Hammond, George Pappas, one of those frontline guys, and you want to hear how the fans are embracing you. If you're a second unit guy, if you're a young guy, if you're a role player, we are the go-to place for that.
Listen, the way I compare it, you get more of Albert with Eddie and Steve on the game show, and then for the podcast, we're kind of like the ESPN. We're sports center telling you what happened. Or I also say they're more ESPN, we're more Barstool, but that's a different conversation. So going over the players in the game, Hammond had a great game, and we highlighted this too. We knew Dion was going to have a good series because he just wasn't going to not have a good series. He struggled a little bit up at Siena, didn't have his best weekend. We know he went 4 for 11 from the line and had a tough first game. You knew he beat himself up over it, but I said he's going to come back. He's going to be fine. This is who Dion Hammond is. He has a bad game, and not even a bad game, just an off game. And he's going to play 10 times harder the next week and make sure he prepares to get ready. And what do you know? He has 21 points, and he's 7 for 7 from the line, all right? You knew that was going to happen. He wasn't going to miss a free throw after he went 4 for 11, all right? So hats off to Dion for figuring that out. Malik with a monster weekend, 12 points, 2 steals, and 6 rebounds in this one. Malik is becoming, like I said a couple weeks ago, he is becoming worthy of all MAC third team type honors. This kid's doing everything for this team. Marcus McClary didn't score, but 10 rebounds and 4 assists in the game. I keep saying it, and I was Marcus's biggest critic a couple years ago. Marcus is doing a lot for this team, guys. I mean, he's locking down guys on defense. He's getting rebounds when we're going five guards, and he's hitting shots. He's not taking a lot of shots, but you look at his volume, and he's 2 for 3, 3 for 4, 3 for 5. Like, he's taking all good shots, and he's making them. Like, he's not taking these ridiculous drives to the basket. He's not taking these crazy off-balance shots like he used to. He is so confident in what he's doing out there. It's a huge, huge plus for this team, especially when some of the other pieces in this team that are expected to score haven't been scoring. So having Marcus doing what he's doing is huge. Pappas had 6 points in the game. And you know what? I know people are going to point to Pappas's point totals and get a little concerned. You don't need to, because teams are keying in on him. They're not letting him breathe in the half court, and that's why he's not getting open looks. It has nothing to do with the way he's shooting. His shooting percentage is fine. It's teams are not going to let George Pappas shoot from 3 in the half court, and you see that. Most of his threes right now are all in transition. So if they're going to beat us, these teams are saying if they're going to beat us in transition, he hits a 3, so be it. We're not going to let you get a wide open shot when we're playing man to man. You're not going to get open. And, kudos to the other teams for figuring that out. And eventually, King's going to find ways to get him open because that's what they do. They make adjustments. But they're not letting him shoot like they did the first couple weeks. Miles Ruth continues to be a star for this team as a freshman. 8 points, 4 steals. This dude had 9 steals over the weekend. 9 steals in 2 games. This kid is all over the place. Even though he hasn't hit every shot, but you know what? The kid always takes good shots. He's playing great defense. He fouls a lot, but that happens when you play good D. And he's causing havoc out there. And he is another Marcus on this team. And now, in the past, where you had Marcus could only play defense and couldn't score a lot, and you put him in the game, all right, well, now you're playing 4-on-5 on offense. Well, now you have 2 lockdown defenders, and both of them are hitting shots and hitting good shots. So, I mean, it's a huge dynamic shift from what we're used to in the past, with some guys being one-dimensional. Now they're both lockdowns hitting shots. They are maybe the best defensive backcourt in the MAC right now. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, Ruth is just such a pest, and his wingspan, I would love if Steve or Eddie could get that for us, what his wingspan is, because if he's 6'1", I venture to say his wingspan is probably something like 6'8", because the way that he's constantly getting his hand on the ball, and it really doesn't matter who it is. The only guy so far that he couldn't guard was Jalen Pickett. And when you allow a guy to illegally push off with his off arm and discard nonstop every time up and down the floor, and I'm sorry that I missed the last podcast, but I had to get this in there. Okay, he's the only guy that Ruth has not been able to successfully cover, and it is impossible to cover him with his combination of the talent around him, his individual skills, and the fact that the referees don't call the illegal discard on him. And actually, in one of these games, St. Fursey for Marist did an illegal discard, and right away I thought, well, okay, because he's not the darling of the league, Jalen Pickett, he gets this called on him, but there are different rules. It's like the Jordan rules. There are Pickett rules in the MAC, and it makes me sick.
You know what? Every year it's something. It's Jordan Washington would get away with throwing the elbow in the paint. Manhattan gets away with murder when they probably could have racked up 45 fouls a game, and you would see the scoreboard like, how did they get 8 fouls in the first half? Like, they fouled us 26 times and reached in on every possession, and they're elbowing us on offense. How does this team have 8 fouls or 9 fouls? They're not even the double bonus, and they should have been like 4 minutes into the game. Like, certain guys and certain teams just get certain treatment, and I get you can't call it on every play, but like, seriously, like when Manhattan was good, like they fouled you every trip up down the court, and it was just never called. And then Masiello's out of his box, practically sitting on King Rice's lap. He's practically past the half court line. Oh, stay in your box. Oh, okay. He keeps talking, moving closer to King Rice. Like, I mean, certain guys just get away with murder, and the refs don't care. But, maybe one day, we'll make a tournament and we'll be that alpha and we'll start getting calls like that. But, we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, well, you know what?
Yeah,
If Rich Ensor or the leader of the MAC officiating is listening to this, someone please take a look at how that kid is officiated differently than anybody else in the league. It's totally unfair.
So moving on to a few last notes for players for this game. Foster has been making a nice little role for himself. Doesn't get a lot of minutes, but when he's in there, he is hitting shots. He's got a nice little baby hook going where he's making about 2 out of 3, 2 out of 4 of those. He comes in, plays a little defense, hits a couple baby hooks, comes out of the game, and that's it. I mean, he's not going to get a lot of minutes. He's not in quite the best shape that you want him in just yet, but he's a freshman, and he's going to grow into his body. He's going to get quicker. He's going to get stronger. But for what he's got right now, he's playing pretty well, and we need that because Ruddy is not getting quite the minutes and quite the action that we're used to him getting. Just 2 points, 2 rebounds, 2 blocks in this game. Played great on defense, but he's not right yet. He's definitely not fully over the injury. King Rice is limiting the minutes, and he doesn't look like Nikkei Ruddy out there. And so the injury is either still bothering him or he's still recovering. He might be trying to just push through it and battle for this team to be in there. But you can tell he's not fully right yet, and he will be eventually. But, it's good that Foster is out there because it's helping kind of ease the blow of those minutes and that production.
I want to jump in on Ruddy real quick, Ryan, if I may. I don't think that Nikkei Ruddy is a guy that you should be dumping the ball down to with his back to the basket. I don't think that is his skill set, and I think that got us into a lot of trouble against Siena. And I think that Monmouth going more towards using Martin and McClary together up front and then trying to utilize, like you said, Foster in the low post a little bit is a much better way to utilize offense at the 5. Nikkei Ruddy is a good player. He's active. He's bouncy. He rebounds. He runs the floor, and that's what you should use him for. Dumping the ball down to him in the low post like it's Shaq in the early 2000s is not what you should be doing with Nikkei Ruddy. Okay, so we need to utilize his skill in a different way. And in this game, like you said, 2 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 block shots. That's what we need from him. We need him to be, a rim runner and a guy that does the dirty work at the center spot.
So Holmstrom still not getting a lot of minutes, but hits another 3 in this game. So it does look like he's as advertised. He's a 3-point shooter because he is making those when he gets the shots. Gob Gabriel looking much more confident this year. 6 points in just 13 minutes. But when he's out there, he doesn't look as panicked. He looks a lot better out there. I'm excited to see what Gob Gabriel brings to the table the rest of this season and moving forward. He's looking good right now. Totally 8 points in 13 minutes. I think he was still in a little bit of trouble. I think this was King kind of almost taking what he gave him the second game at Siena, saying he was very fortunate to even play. Maybe that was a little bit of a carryover. Like, all right, you're still not going to play a lot today, but I'm still going to kind of like make this the second half of your punishment. But he played good when he was out there. He looked good. Sam Chapu continues to struggle. He played a little better on Sunday, but Saturday, no points in 16 minutes, 1 assist and 4 fouls. I mean, he's not himself right now. Again, he looked a little better Sunday, but I think spending some time coming off the bench and realizing the opportunity that he had and that he could still have as a starter, I think that should light a little fire under him. And listen, maybe he's better off the bench. Maybe he's not meant to play against the ones, and he's better running that second rotation, and that might be a better spot for him. Maybe he just can't handle playing the top point guards in the league just yet, and he needs to be against that second rotation. So this might be a good thing for Sam, and we might see more production from him because he's in the second unit now. So hopefully that's the case. Going over the stats, I mean, Monmouth dominated in just about every part of this game before we move on to the next game. They shot 50% from the field, 53% from 3. They knocked down a ton of threes in this game, 78% from the line. That's what we're looking for, all right? And when you're in the MAC, you can't shoot 50, 60%. And we said it's going to get better. They had no offseason, no time to prepare or go over everything. So things are going to be a little discombobulated. Things aren't going to be as sharp. But, 78% from the line, that's the kind of game we're looking for, where Marist shot only 30%, lots of points on the board there. Monmouth that rebounded them 35-28, and only 10 turnovers for Monmouth in the game. That's a great number. If you only turn the ball over 5 times per half, that's a great stat for Monmouth, especially as fast-paced as they play. 10 turnovers we'll take any day.
Especially when you made the transition to the freshman point guard starting too.
Exactly. Anything else from this game, Mark? I know you were kind of limited here, but anything else you got?
Yeah, the one thing that I liked is that I like the move putting the M&Ms out there as an undersized big duo and starting Ruth as King Rice followed your advice. I think both those moves paid off this weekend. After last weekend, I was thinking that if Martin didn't have it offensively any given night, which he unfortunately didn't have up at Siena either day, he really had a forgetful weekend up there. Monmouth's offense was essentially starting out going 2-on-5 as Ruddy and Chapeau are not really scoring threats outside of, a Chapeau layup here or there with like a shifty move and Ruddy, with those garbage points. So maybe King and his staff noticed that as well. And, let's credit them with their rotation changes following a tough weekend. And also good to see Totley back involved in this one a little bit more.
No doubt about it. Game two, Monmouth won 72-62. It was pretty much the identical start to the game. Monmouth led 21-11 early on, same score as the day before. Marist got it to 4 about midway through the half. But Monmouth answered back and went on a huge run to get it to 39-24 with a 15-point lead at the half. Pretty much dominated them. Monmouth kept them at arm's length for the most part. Marist got it to 59-50 with like 7 minutes to go. After that, Monmouth just pretty much ran away with it. It was never really in question, and that's the games you want. Like when you play Iona, Siena, St. Peter's, you're not going to have games like this. Like they're just not going to happen. But when you play Marist, who is a pretty good team, but not a top team yet, when you play Niagara, you play Ryder this year, Quinnipiac, this is the kind of game you expect. And I honestly, they exceeded my expectations for the weekend because I didn't think it was going to be this easy. Like I figured Marist coming high into the game, they're top of the conference next to Siena, and they did not look like that team. And I don't know if their schedule just wasn't as challenging, but maybe it was a little deceptive. But Marist is a pretty good basketball team, and Monmouth really never gave them a chance in this game. We know Monmouth shoots it a lot better at home than they do on the road. They love it's target practice, and that happened when Justin was here and Ray and everybody else. When they're at home, it feels like target practice because they just seem to hit everything, and they're always scoring for the most part in the 80s or more at home. And Marist, I mean, even though they were top 3 coming into the weekend, they looked like a bottom 3 team playing against Monmouth this weekend.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what you want to do if you're Monmouth. When you have home games, you want to enforce your will and impose your will, and you want to make teams lose their comfort level and get them out of their comfort zone and exploit their weaknesses. And credit Monmouth, their players, and their staff for bouncing back from what really was a nightmare last week to really a performance this weekend that leaves you with optimism abound about this Hawks team.
So highlighting kind of some of the stars from the game, Deion Hammond again, 21 points. Eddie and Steve do the Warrior of the Game. Now it's a new thing this year, sponsored by U.S. Army. Deion Hammond's going to be the Warrior just about every game. Once in a while, maybe he'll score 15 points instead of 25, and maybe Malik gets it or maybe Pappas gets it. But like Deion's going to be the Warrior probably like 80% of our games. 21 points, 9 rebounds, 9 of 11 from the line in 31 minutes. I mean, he did everything in this game. I mean, Deion had himself a hell of a weekend. And again, like I said, you knew he was going to do it. You just knew it. Malik Martin with a career day, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 28 points in the weekend. Really nice weekend for Malik. Did everything out there, slashing over the court. King Rice screamed at him at one point because he passed up a shot. End of the shot clock. They moved the ball around really well. He was the last guy to touch it. He should have shot the 3. Instead, he pump fakes, tries to step in, get a better shot. Shot clock goes off. King Rice loses his mind. But, that shows confidence in Malik, though, because King Rice is like, shoot the damn ball. Malik is shooting the ball so well this year, even from 3. You're like, dude, if you're open, like, you're Deion and Pappas, you're shooting as well as they are. Like, shoot the ball. So, again, besides that one, blip on the radar, Malik had a great weekend. Pappas found his groove, hit 3 threes in 23 minutes. Nice night for Pappas. Not his best, but again, he's not getting opportunities. So he's doing as much as he can with whatever little he has to work with. Pappas has been very, very efficient in the short amount of shots that he's gotten. Ruth had a really nice game on defense. Not his best on offense. Turned it over a little bit. Had four turnovers as a freshman. That's going to happen, okay? It's going to happen as a freshman point guard. You're going to have days like that. But you know what? Look at the other side. 5 assists, 3 steals. All right, I misspoke before. He had 7 steals on the weekend, not 9. But 5 assists, 3 steals. It just shows, even as a freshman, when you're not the one taking any shots, and he had actually had 0 shots in the game. You took 0 shots, but you still are involved and make that much of a difference on the court. It shows how mature he is as a 19-year-old kid, if he's even 19. Because typically as a freshman, you want to come in and do everything. And if you're not shooting the ball or you're not shooting it well, sometimes your defense takes a hit. You're not playing it well. You're not thinking straight. Miles Ruth is a very mature kid because if you can come in and not take 1 shot and still make that kind of impact, I mean, he's going to be special, guys. I mean, he really is going to be that guy. He's going to be a really, really tough player for our program. Ruddy, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Again, 0 points, 1 rebound in 13 minutes. Guys, he's not right, He's not fully back yet. This is not the Nikkei Ruddy we're used to seeing. It's not Nikkei Ruddy that's going to be there in a few weeks when he's dominating and playing much better down low. This is a different version of Ruddy. He's getting his feet under him. He's figuring things out. Don't worry about this just yet. It's going to be fine. Chapu, a better day. 5 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. Did have 3 turnovers. Got to clean those up, but at least Sam did look a little more comfortable out there in game 2.
Yeah, and then you start looking at percentages, and Marist shot 11% from the three-point line, and Monmouth shot 40% from the three-point line. Marist well under 40% from the field. Monmouth 43%. And again, Monmouth hit their free throws 75%. Marist under 68%. And Monmouth out-rebounded them 37-34. So all those stats really jump out at you with positives. The one negative, 18 Monmouth turnovers. You highlighted Miles Ruth had 4. Marist only had 13 turnovers, but with the way Monmouth was shooting it, with the extra possessions from the rebounding, Monmouth was still able to cruise to a double-digit win.
I would like to talk to somebody at Elias Sports Bureau and see what percentage of college teams win a basketball game shooting 11% from 3. The number's got to be pretty low. I mean, in this day and age where everything's about a 3-point ball in transition, I can't imagine that number is more than like 5%. When you shoot 11% from 3, you're going to have a very tough time winning in this day's college basketball. That's a tough sell. Yeah, the only downside for Monmouth in this game, they turned the ball over a lot. 18 turnovers. It definitely wasn't the cleanest game Monmouth has played so far. 18 is definitely going to hurt against Iona, Siena, St. Peter's. You're probably not beating them with 18 turnovers, but luckily for them, they came on a day where they played Marist, who was not shooting the ball well at all this weekend. So that guy kind of overlooked a little bit. Wasn't a big deal, but definitely a little bit concerning. Got to cut that down a little bit, but Saturday it was fine. Sunday it wasn't, so it averaged out a little bit. But overall, Marist didn't have a chance this whole weekend. I mean, Monmouth pretty much led wire to wire in both games. So, I mean, really, for the most part, besides a couple of times here and there, Monmouth had a double-digit lead almost the entire second half of both games. And, it was big because, you know what, going into the schedule coming up, they really needed these two. And listen, is the end of the world they split? No, they would have been 4-4. But you know what? Now you're 5-3. You get Quinnipiac coming in, and Quinnipiac is not a bad team. They're always going to be tough under Dunleavy. But you know what? They had so many transfers, and their best 2 players transferred. And those guys are doing well in their other teams now in the bigger conferences. And you know what? They're not the same team. They're not the Quinnipiac they were the last few years. So this is a team that you're playing them at home. It's a new group of guys. If you can get the sweep this weekend, you're 7-3 going into series against it's a big road series. It's at Manhattan, at Iona, and at Niagara. That's a daunting 6-game stretch. So
6-game stretch where you'd be okay going 3-3.
Exactly. So to me, between Manhattan being a tough team, although they're a little down this year, they're still tough. They're still talented. We know what Iona is every year, especially under Patino. That's going to be a dogfight of a series. You hope to split, up at Iona. And then you have Niagara. You got to travel all the way up there. And typically, teams are not going to sweep Buffalo. Like, it's a long trip. That's a tough thing to do in 2 days. So if you go 3-3, okay, now you're 10-6. All right.
Is it going to be tough for the Ravens too? Right, that's a long trip.
I hope for you it's tough for the Ravens. I hope for you. But you know what? You at least if you're 7-3 and you split up there, it's not so bad. You're still probably a top 3 or 4 team in the conference, probably top 3. But if you lose, both of these or you split, you're kind of in a tough spot because if you go worse than 500 on the road there, now you're back to a 500 record, and now you're back fighting for a bye. So it's really important for Monmouth to get this sweep. Again, if they split, not the end of the world. It's tough to get sweeps right now. But I do think a sweep will go a long way for them in terms of the whole scope of how they'll finish the next season.
Yeah, I'll jump real quick into my Quinnipiac scouting since you kind of touched on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like you had said, Rich Kelly went to Boston College, and the rebounding monster and Kevin Marfo went to Texas A&M. They both grad transferred out to Power 5 squads. Kelly has notably had some big moments. I think the other night against Duke, he had a couple big shots too. So QU will look different. They're actually led by a freshman wing named Taimu Chenery, who projects as a tough, long, skilled Philly wing, but he only averages 11 points per game. Rich Kelly was like around 20. Remember, Cam Young was like 27 points per game or something crazy. So Quinnipiac was always driven by that one big-time scorer, and they're not that way anymore. The way that this team is constituted, they're actually only averaging about 64 points per game. They're shooting it under 30% from the three-point line, even though they're still taking almost 20 a game, 23s a game. Again, we're not going to let Ryan talk about this guy, but they do have a couple guys that you could remember. Jacob Rigoni is averaging 8 and 6, and I still believe that Ryan ticked him off right before our MAC semis preview back in 2019, which led to him having the game of his life. Sorry. They got the 6'3" junior wing Tyrese Williams, who always seems to bang like 28 footers against Monmouth. He's averaging 8 a game. The 7-footer Seth Pinckney, who we got to look at last year, backing up Marfo. He's 8.5 points per game and 3 blocks per game. But the guy who has really shown out for them is 6'7" swing forward Brendan McGuire, who like barely had like 3 points per game last year as a freshman, and he's averaging almost 10 points per game. But it's a weird Quinnipiac lineup, and it's a weird setup because generally you're used to them having like 2 big-time scorers and then everybody filling roles, and it just seems like a whole bunch of role players. The X factor in this is Steve Bazaz's dark horse to lead the MAC in scoring in 6'1" New York City speed guard Savion Lewis, who does average 8 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. So he does a little bit of everything, but Dunleavy's teams generally don't engage consistently enough on the defensive end. And although they're averaging about, I think, 5 or 6 blocks per game, most of that is just Pinckney being Pinckney. I think Monmouth could win these games just based on superior effort and defending the three-point line, which has been historically difficult for us versus Dunleavy's squads.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not Quinnipiac as we saw it, where they had, Kelly bombing threes everywhere and his toughness on D, and then Marfo doing whatever he wanted down low, Rigoni doing his thing and making me eat my words on the outside. They had a lot of weapons over the past, and they've always been such a great rebounding team. Quinnipiac, since we were with them in the NEC days, when I first got to Monmouth, they would kill us on the boards every year. I mean, we would lose rebound battles to them by like 20, 25 some nights. And, they don't have that team this year, They're a team that could definitely sneak up on anybody, but they are not that scary, senior, junior laden team like they used to be. And, it's very important Monmouth gets a sweep this weekend. They got to handle their business just like they did versus Canisius, just like they did against Marist, and hopefully they can keep the home winning streak going. couple more notes from this game. Totally looked really good in this game. Hitting shots all over. Solid game. We need him get up 20, 25 minutes a game. All right. Right now he's around 15. We really need him playing 25 minutes. So hopefully him and King Rice are on the same page going forward. Hopefully Totley has got everything under control as off the court stuff, because if he is hitting and doing his thing for 25 minutes next to Dion for 30, 35 minutes, Pappas gets hot, McClary and Malik and all these guys are doing their thing. This team is deeper than any team in the MAC, really deeper than any team I can remember since the Monmouth team of past years. One thing besides totally getting more minutes, we need Jarvis back. That's one thing that I'll finish with that I'm very big on. We need Jarvis back. I don't know what it is with him with this concussion. I don't know if he's going to be out for a while, if he's just kind of going through protocols and he's not ready through the testing yet. I'm not sure. We don't know what's going on with Jarvis just yet. We haven't heard. But you know what? Having him down low, his physicality alone, besides his shooting, he can shoot it from 15, 20 feet. He can rebound really well. He can play defense really well and block shots in the stands and off the backboard. He's a lot of fun to watch, but we need his physicality down low. And, the guards doing a great job when we go 5 guards to pull guys at bay and box out. They've been doing a great job with it. Malik and McClary and these guys and Vuga. But we need Jarvis down there. And if he is down there doing his thing, I really think Monmouth is the best team in the MAC. And I think not having him for the Siena series was detrimental. I think we had nobody to match up with their big guys down low and push them around when they were pushing us around. And I think that's a different series, and we at least split them if Jarvis is in. I know he hasn't played a lot so far, but I think he makes that much of a difference last weekend. So we really need him back. I hope he's feeling better. I hope he can get through this concussion protocol quick and get back on the court as quick as possible.
Yeah, so one notable thing, Marist was given some big publicity last week going into the Monmouth series from Jared Kotler at midmajormadness.com. He wrote a full article on them being MAC contenders. And wow. I wonder if Monmouth had read that and were motivated. What's your take on that? Like if the Monmouth players, if one of them on social media had seen that and that helped motivate them?
It's definitely possible. I mean, it's not. I mean, everybody's got social media. Everybody's got Twitter and Instagram. So it's not. It's definitely not impossible. And you know what? To me, I don't know if that guy follows the MAC very closely or not, but I get it being excited about a team that starts the year hot. Marist top of the standings and kind of a dark horse. Nobody really knew what they were going to be with John Dunn this year. And listen, they still might be a very good team, and they still might get a bye in a top 5 seed in Atlantic City. But to say they're a contender right now, like you got Monmouth, you got Iona, you got Siena, you got St. Peter. That's the 4. Like if you're picking somebody outside of that group, I mean you're kind of like taking 101 shot in the sports book and hoping your $1 gets you $100. Like Marist is not a contender right now. And listen, if they win it all in AC and make me eat my words, I'll eat my words. That's fine. But I just, from what I saw this weekend, I do not see that being a team talented enough or good enough to win in Atlantic City or really even advance past the first couple rounds. So, yeah, I mean, they definitely could have seen that, or maybe they just beat the crap out of them because they're not that good.
And then I agree, Dion looked more himself at the free throw line in this one. A week removed from a 4 for 11 performance. He goes 9 for 11. And those 9 rebounds, that is not a coincidence when you look at the work that he did this offseason to further strengthen and develop his body. He almost kind of looks like a power forward out there now, one of those undersized, mid-major power forwards. But then, he's a guy who's got a pretty outside shot, and he's, developing off the handle, and he's finishing strong. He's a monster right now in the MAC. Martin was the X factor all weekend long, and shout out to him. His strong play earned him the Smooth Operator of the Week award from MAC commentator Chris Williams.
That's cool.
If Malik played anything like this last week, we certainly don't get swept at Siena. And we called, now it's just a recurring thing with us. Like, you just you record the show and you just continue to play it over and over again. We called to add a grad transfer big man this offseason, and despite both of us liking the upside of Vuga and Foster and being excited and encouraged by the early return of Ruddy, who still isn't 100%, it really shows that they still needed someone to step up and impose their will inside for them. So
100%.
we are paging Jarvis Vaughn, who we wish the best of health on his recovery from a concussion. Concussions can be really, really tricky. We don't want to downplay that situation at all. The fact that he's been out multiple weeks definitely makes me concerned for the kid, and what a concussion can do to you long term. So hopefully it's nothing too serious and he can get back, especially with the way he plays, Ryan. He's such a fearless, physical player, and likes to impose his will. In the beginning of this season, I had said Totley and Vaughn needed to negate what Salnave and Traore gave us. So far, they haven't, and Monmouth is still 5-3 in the MAC. And I do believe that as the year goes on, we will get more from Totley and Vaughn. Speaking of Totley, one thing I really enjoyed in this game was seeing Totley, Pappas, and Hammond with Malik and Marcus at the forwards. They ran together and they scored like 9 points really quickly on 3 threes. And they looked as explosive of a guard trio as we have seen in West Long Branch since the days of J. Rob Seaborn and Hornbeek, who had in the gym range.
Yeah, totally is explosive. I mean, that guy can do things that very few people in the MAC can do. I mean, the reverse is at the basket, the touch he has, splitting guys, 6'8", 6'9" guys, working around two of them to get to the basket and get a shot and go in. I mean, there's very few guys that have that kind of skill ability around the basket as a small guard like he is, kind of like Justin could. So getting him up to that 25, 30-minute range is going to be really important for Monmouth moving forward to try to win this thing. So before we get out of here,
him and Jarvis, to me, right? Him and Jarvis are the difference between us winning everything in Atlantic City or just being, one of the contenders in Atlantic City.
I'm with you, man. It's going to come down to those two. No doubt about it. All right.
Not to put too much pressure on two kids, but you know what? We know what we're going to get from Dion Hammond. George Pappas has been very consistent. We know what we're going to get from McClary and from Malik Martin most nights, okay? So if they're your top 4 guys, Miles Ruth has been a welcome surprise as a freshman. He's your 5th guy. And then you get Totley and Jarvis, and that's your top 7. And we got Gobb emerging as the 8th guy. And then you fit in a Chapu and a big in there. I like it a lot if Totley and Vaughn can get healthy and get right physically and mentally and behaviorally. The sky's the limit for this team. And I was impressed with Siena, but if Jalen Pickett didn't have the MAC refs in his back pocket, I don't know. I don't know if they win. Now they're about to win their 14th game in a row, and it's easy to win when you're able to cheat each and every time up and down the court. And that's it for me. Go Bills.
On that note, good luck to your Bills. Thanks everybody for listening tonight. Monmouth gets a sweep this weekend over Marist. Quinnipiac coming up this week. Make sure you watch ESPN3, ESPN Plus. And thanks for listening. Have a great night.